Hey everybody, Danny J here. It is Capes Not Included right here on the DJB Productions Network. Make sure you hit the subscribe button down below. Make sure you're hitting the notification bell as well, and obviously leave comments. Share the channel. We hope everybody's having a great day. It is Capes Not Included. I am joined today by my good friend Matt Sunner. Matt, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well, Danny. How you doing?
Very good, very good. Make sure you check out Matt Sunner on Have You Seen It Lately right here on the network as well. Today, we are talking about what is a blockbuster scenario that's been happening for the last 3 weeks or so, and that is Spider-Man leaving the MCU. Tom Holland's character of Spider-Man, because his Disney and Sony collaboration has ended and they have failed to come to a new agreement. Sony's pulling Spider-Man and all Spider-Man, or Sony, I should say, properties from the MCU and then moving forward from there. I have a lot of opinions on this, which we'll get into. There's a lot of people that are like saying, hey, this sucks. We just had Far From Home, which was a great movie. And yes, Matt, you and I were just saying offline, what an end credit scene for Spider-Man Far From Home.
Yeah, and if you haven't seen it, cover your ears, but his secret identity is revealed to the world.
And not only that, but we get what's his name? J.K. Simmons, C.K. Simmons?
Yeah. J.J.
Not J.J.
J.K. Yeah, not yeah.
J.K. Simmons.
J.K.
Simmons.
Yeah, bringing back J. Jonah Jameson.
He reprises his role, which he did phenomenally.
Yeah, he did.
In the other movies, but he comes back in as J. Jonah Jameson, so everybody was freaking loving it at the end of that movie. I know I was as well.
Yeah.
Tom Holland by far has done such a phenomenal job as Spider-Man.
He does. I think overall he has probably been the most believable actor in that role.
And that could be for a number of things. I mean, one, he's a great actor. Two, the version of Spider-Man that we're getting is I'm in high school learning my power Spider-Man. The one thing I've liked about Tom Holland has been that he's a kid. And as a kid, he's dealing with these phenomenal powers. And he's forgetting that he is. Like, I can go back to Homecoming. He gets trampled down by debris, courtesy of the Vulture. And sitting there, and he's almost starting to cry, and he's like yelling for help, and you now take yourself out of it as a viewer. You're like, man, this is just like a 15-year-old kid. He's scared, And then when he looks down in the puddle, and he sees his face, and it's kind of like the mask is there in the water, so it's like a half Spider-Man, half Peter Parker. Then he remembers, or he realizes, like, hey, I can like muster up the energy to do this because I am more than what I am. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And it's a triumphant scene, for Peter Parker. You then get similar things in Far From Home because he's dealing with the loss of Tony Stark. He's dealing with this scenario of like, people are now looking to me as a savior, as a hero, something that he was cool on a small scale, but he's got to go big scale. He's an Avenger now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he's got to, like, with great power comes great responsibility, and he's learning.
How do I balance this? How do I balance a normal life with being a superhero?
And he says it in the movie. Once again, spoilers if you haven't seen it, but if you haven't seen it by now, screw you. I don't understand why you'd have it.
Yeah, why not? If you're watching this show and haven't seen it by now, you're slacking.
If you're watching this show and then go see Spider-Man Far From Home, I don't understand what you're doing. No offense to my show. But but the scenario is that in the movie he says, I just want to tell the girl that I like her. And I want to, he's longing to be a normal kid. That's all he wants to do. He's longing to be a normal kid. He's not saying he doesn't want to be a hero, but he's really missing the fact that he's a kid because he's blipped out for 5 years, based on Infinity War. And then he comes back and it's like, he's got to be this hero. And it's like a full-time job, and he has no time to be a kid. He has no time to adjust to being out of the world for 5 years, and that people are older than him, and that he's like his whole grade. And it was very convenient that his entire grade were
or at least the people he was closest to all blipped. Yeah,
everybody blipped. Yeah, including Aunt May. Aunt May could have blipped and she came back and she's still hot because it's Martha Tomei. Yeah. But who cares? But that's the thing, and you get that from him, and you get and that's the romantic thing about these Spider-Man movies with Tom Holland is that you're falling in love with this kid.
Yeah,
he's very charming, and yeah.
And what I've liked the most about it is really how they handled his growth overall too.
Yeah.
Because when he first has those powers, it's like, cool, I got these powers. Hey, I'm talking to Tony Stark. Hey, can I be an Avenger? Can I be an Avenger? Can I be an Avenger?
Yeah.
And then he gets into the whole Infinity War and sees it like, holy shit.
Yeah, this is a lot.
Wake up call.
Yeah, this is a lot.
And then it's like, all right, maybe it's not so cool, it's he gets that wake up call,
right,
as it is.
And I like that he's not longing for Uncle Ben in these movies, because it's been done. It's been done, and I get it. Uncle Ben was the major role for him to be an upstanding individual. But I like that Tony Stark was that step in dad figure. And the connection not only with him to Tony, but Tony to Peter.
Yeah. It's that whole I know what it's like to be a reluctant hero.
Right. And
I'm going to guide you with my experience on how to navigate this, at least somewhat.
And go back to Infinity War when he sees Peter come out of the 5-year blip during the end game, I should say. And like Peter's doing his thing. He's like, "Oh, Mr. Stark, blah 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 blah," and he's just being Peter.
Yeah.
And it's that thing like you get from your mom when your mom's like just gazing at you. My mom used to do that all the time. Doesn't matter what the hell you're saying, but she's just gazing at you like, "Oh, my boy, my boy."
Yeah.
And then this negates everything you're saying and just gives you this big hug. And Tony does that to Peter. Yeah. Like he's like, "Just come here." And it's a vulnerability that you don't get from Tony Stark.
Yeah.
So Peter drew that out of him. Out of anybody, Peter drew that out of him, which I thought was just such a great connection. And the Russo brothers conveyed that so well in the show.
Yeah, they did.
So now the whole point of today's show is that, unfortunately, Spider-Man is leaving the MCU.
Yeah.
The talks between Disney and Sony have gone down. There was a lot of rumors and a lot of things, a lot of really cool things that were coming down as like, here they, talks picked back up, talks went down again, talks picked back up. There was talks of like in the cinematic universe, like having the Spider Friends like meet up,
which would have been awesome.
Oh my! It would have been a geek. It would have been a geek overload explosion. Like heads would have destroyed themselves in the movie theater, right? If that happened. There was talks of him meeting up with Johnny Storm, which for those out there who know Spider-Man and know Spider-Man and his amazing friends and stuff like that, originally the Amazing Friends were supposed to be Spider-Man, Iceman, and Johnny Storm, the Human Torch. Because the Human Torch, for legal reasons, could not be physically used because of registered trademarks and whatnot, they created Firestar, was a made-for-TV. She was a created figure, and then eventually became canon in the comic books, the same way they did with Harley Quinn for the Batman the Animated Series. She was not in the comic books at all. She was in the animated series and then became now one of the biggest stars in DC.
Yeah.
For not being in the comic books, but now she is. So there was a lot of cool things like that we were going to see, and that we were going to be like, oh wow, that would be so awesome if they did this. That would be so awesome if they did that. And then talks are down again. Now, when we were researching and getting ready to do this show, I said it many times in our chat rooms and stuff like that. I know what's happening here. I'm very good at reading between the lines, and I'm very good at seeing things for what they are. Now, you got to take this with a grain of salt because I do not physically know. Okay. But it just seems very, very, very convenient that after the movies that Spider-Man has been in, Captain America, Civil War,
yep.
Spider-Man Far From Home, or Homecoming, Spider-Man Homecoming. Then Infinity War, Endgame, and then Far From Home. So that's 5 movies that Sony was able to make Spider-Man the face of the MCU.
Exactly.
Okay? They did all the legwork. They did everything they could do to make Spider-Man like, I don't care what's in that movie, dude. Spider-Man's in it. I'm going to watch it. That's what the MCU did. And for all intents and purposes, like I liked Venom, which was a Sony property. But for as much money as it made, the movie quality did not equate the money that it made. We talked about Venom in our second episode, I think, on this show. But the thing was, although it was a fun movie and it was a popcorn eating movie, and I was like, yeah, Venom's pretty good. And Sony did a good job delivering a Venom without Spider-Man. They gave you everything but Spider-Man in this Venom movie. It wasn't a great movie. It really wasn't, but it was good enough for me to say, I'm satisfied with what I got. I'm sure I would have loved that.
It's kind of like what we talked about on Have You Seen It Lately occasionally, that just because it's not a great movie doesn't mean it's not a fun, enjoyable movie that you're gonna you're gonna sit there and be like, hey, I enjoyed this.
I mean, there are movies that by all intents and purposes are critical failures. And people
but are great but are good movies.
Yeah, they really are. They're just I love watching that movie. It's not my favorite movie of all time. I mean, I've watched Venom. I think I've watched Venom twice, potentially a third time, but I think I watched it twice. Okay. And I enjoyed it. Like I said, I enjoyed it. It was fun. It kept me from beginning to middle to end. I enjoyed it. But it was not the successful quality that they wanted out of the movie. And I think the fact that I don't know what drove the numbers, but like there were outside things that were driving people to go see Venom.
Yeah, ultimately Venom is just a great character, so you wanted to go see.
Yeah, you did. I think it was one of those late things where it's like, how was that Venom movie? Was it good? Yeah, I was gonna go see it, and then people started going to see it, and more and more and more. Now, it's not to say they loved it, but people went and saw it, and they made money enough to make a sequel. Okay, but what I said was this: MCU, thank you for making Spider-Man and Tom Holland phenomenal. Thank you for bringing back Spider-Man to a glory that unfortunately we failed to do with Sam Raimi and with the Amazing Spider-Man series, which I'll get into it in a little bit, but I liked it myself. A lot of people didn't. I liked it. And I'll get into that.
I didn't like it as much as Sam Raimi's version.
Right.
But it was still good.
Some people were like that. I'll get into that, and I'll get into the difference between the characters and stuff like that. But it's like, MCU, thank you for doing all the legwork. Now we're going to take him back, add him to my Venom sequel, and correct what we did in the first one that we were getting jeers on, even though the movie did well. You see what I'm saying? And then we'll add it to Morbius and stuff like that, because we have all these other characters. You brought us to this level, MCU, so that our Spider-Verse can be what we were hoping to be money-wise. You see what I'm saying? It was a very shifty business move. It really was.
Well, and the thing that I know, and when you and I have talked about this in prepping for the show, it's unfortunate because the fans are the ones who ultimately, in the long run, lose out.
Yeah,
because we know hopefully Sony can take what Marvel and Disney did and help again elevate that character and bring it to what we've really wanted to see out of it, and they can continue that. They can maintain, but at the same time you've got Sony, Disney, and Marvel, with a hot property squabbling over drops in their own individual buckets.
Right. Exactly.
I can see one studio. Okay, well, we own the licensing, and then and you want to use it for this, and maybe if it's having diminishing returns, it's maybe nearing the end of its life cycle as it was in the theater, and you start bickering over a little bit because of going like, hey, this one, the last one it made money, but not as much money as the one before.
Right.
Or as the one before. So we're starting to see diminishing returns. So now we want to cover our butts. We want to make sure that if this is the one that finally tanks, we're covered. None of us lose money. We at least break even, and so on and so forth. But it's a property that is hot, and it's not going to lose money anytime soon.
Right. And the thing is that if they did not lend Spider-Man to the MCU, Spider-Man would have been lukewarm at best because of its failure, because of the failure of Amazing Spider-Man 2, which I think to date is their lowest grossing Marvel movie of all the movies.
Yeah.
Right. That and I like the movie. I ain't gonna lie. I mean, I did like the movie, but people didn't like it, and I have theories on that too. But but it's like, we can't move on with this Spider-Verse unless we can correct some issues. We need to get a leg up, so to speak. We need to jump 3-4 hurdles to get back in contention. Because, like, here's the racers, right? Wait, where's my camera? Here's the racers. And I'm back here somewhere. I'm trying to catch up, but I can't. So, Marvel, help me out. Oh, look at that. Now I'm ahead. Now I can join it back in. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, their animated feature featuring a newly done animation process registered by Sony. It was a Sony process. Was a great movie. Worthy of the awards it won. It was the first time Sony on their own did an amazing job with Spider-Man. And I don't want to say the first time in the sense that like the other ones sucked, because to date, I think still the best told story was Spider-Man 2 with Dr. Octopus from Sam Raimi.
Yes.
Still the best one. But the scenario being is that, Into the Spider-Verse wasn't enough. Venom, they skated by the skin of their teeth, because it was not looking well for Venom initially. The movie comes out, it's already going in with jeers, because they're like, how are you going to have Spider-Man how are you going to have Venom, I should say, without Spider-Man? How are you calling it a symbiote instead of a symbiote? There were so many things that were negatively impacting that movie that it was starting off in a negative. And luckily for Sony, people saw it. They said, it's an enjoyable movie. Go watch it. And people went and saw it. And they're like, hey, this isn't that bad.
It falls into it didn't suck. It's worth at least the price you pay to go see it.
Yeah. I mean, I was happy to have seen it in the movies. It wasn't a movie where it's like, oh, I'm glad I didn't pay for it. Yeah. I mean, it's like,
it's worth your money. Worth your money. Don't bother Don't wait for it to come out on video. Go see it on the big screen, because it's a spectacle.
I mean, I have problems with the movie. I ain't gonna lie. With the Venom movie, I have problems with it. I have problems with their portrayal of Eddie Brock, because Eddie Brock's character was very much so different than the comic book in a sense. It made Eddie out to be a loser, okay, which in the comic book, he does end up not being a loser, but losing a lot. and being down on his luck. So they portray that in the movie, and that's fine. But they made Eddie like this outstanding individual. And Eddie's not this outstanding individual, which is why Venom attached to him so well, because Venom felt the hatred that it felt off of Spider-Man. And then when it got on Eddie Brock and it said, wow, you hate him more than I do, we're a match made in heaven, you know?
Yeah.
And so that's the way it happened in the comics. But in a movie, they kind of got you by it, you know. They made Eddie kind of goofy in a sense, which I wasn't about. The one main thing I did not like was that when Venom and Eddie are conversing and Venom is conveying to Brock why he's there, why I'm connected to you, why we should stay together, is that he starts to say, on my planet, I'm a loser too. And I'm like, I've never heard any such thing about Venom being the runt of the litter, you know, the loser of the pack. Like Venom was just as bad as everybody else on that planet, okay, where he came from. So it's one of those things where Venom did not need to relate with Eddie that much. Okay. Excuse me. And that kind of bugged me a little bit with that. I said, you're trying to make them relate too much. And the reason why they were doing that is because they did not have the reason why they relate so much, which was Spider-Man. Exactly. That was the reason why they related, and it wasn't there. So we had to make up something for them to relate to. Oh, well, guess what? I'm a jerk off too.
Yeah.
That's basically what it was. Misery Loves Company. Great, great, great. Not the best creation of a superhero. You know, could I have maybe had Venom not have an origin story? And maybe it's touched on flashback or something like that. Might have been better. Because the storyline that the Venom movie went after was I forget the name of it. It was a vigilante story where Eddie moves to San Francisco, and anybody's watching, and I'm blanking. I know it, so don't start busting my chops. But if you want to comment down below, it was the Silent Event, not a Silent Avenger, but it was a vigilante thing. It was a storyline where he goes out. No, lethal. I don't know. Just put it down there.
Comment before Dan totally loses his mind
here.
Smashes his head into the wall.
I'm very tired and I produce a lot of shows. But what it is that it's the Lethal Enforcer, I think is what it is, or something like that. And he goes out there and tries to, because he lost so much in New York, he tries to make a name for himself up there. And messages from LeGrand. He's trying to get on the show, but his Wi-Fi's not working. So that's why LeGrand's not on the show.
Oh, pay your bill.
Reboot. Have you unplugged it and plugged it back in?
Have you unplugged it and plugged it back in?
I have website support. I know. But the Lethal Predator or whatever series that was, that's Eddie making a new start for himself. Okay. And I would have been really cool with that if we're getting Eddie Brock, who's got this mysterious past from New York. Okay. Maybe there's flashbacks or something like that. And that way we could erase or negate the need to understand why they're together. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And that way now Venom, who was the only symbiote on Earth, now has to face the other symbiotes that came down on the ship and grabbed by the Life Foundation. You see what I'm saying? Like it would have naturally progressed a lot faster, I think. That would have been the way I would have done it. And Woody Harrelson looked like Ronald McDonald without the makeup at the end of the movie. It was horrible. horrible. It was horrible.
Yeah.
So I hope they correct him when they go, because he is the villain for Venom 2. I think what they're going for is that Tom Holland's going to come in as Spider-Man, and he and Venom together are going to fight Carnage. Blah 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 blah. Oh, that's kind of weird. You're like me, but you have no reason to be like me because I wasn't here. It's like so that's what's happening here. But I think personally, MCU not MCU, but Sony did a slick business move, which was we loaned it out because we weren't able to do anything right with Spider-Man. MCU hit it out of the park, grand slam. Thanks for all your help there, MCU. Thank you, Marvel, so much for everything you did. We're going to take it back now and we're going to move on from there. And now we can move on with our properties that were going to probably suck because we didn't have Spider-Man in them. You know what I mean? And now we can add what you did here and make our shows grand.
Yeah. And like I said, and it's just a shame because if they had just played nice together, I guess the best way to put it.
Yeah.
You could have done that. You could have had Spider-Man in your Sony movies and he still could have been in the MCU.
They wanted Venom to come into the MCU. And now your Venom property would have went through the roof. You know what I mean? Like, there's nothing to say that having cameos in Marvel MCU movies and then Sony go off and do your own movie. It's very easy, since you own the properties, to do a separate movie that's still in canon.
Exactly.
But you don't have to mention anything that you don't own. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like, you don't have to Tony Stark or the Avengers in your own Venom movie, even though in the last movie he fought alongside the Avengers. It can still be the same thing, just that now this is Venom by himself doing his own thing. And nobody mentions what he just did last year. Yeah. You know what I mean? That's all you have to do.
Exactly. And because, too, I mean, as we all know, and a comic book writer, whether you are heavy into reading comics or not, and you and I've discussed this on previous shows where, I'm not real big into reading the comics. But again, these are just such high visibility pop culture icons.
Right.
That you know them. Even if you didn't read the comic books, there were TV shows, cartoons based on the characters, and that's how you know. But anybody who's big into comics knows you've got the different writers have written the characters differently, have written these different stories. So it's not like there's a lack of source material that you can't follow and keep it. Okay, well, Disney and Marvel's going to have Tom Holland in their MCU, doing these storylines. We can keep Tom Holland doing him in our own standalone Spider-Man movies where he fights villains that have no other connection to the Avengers.
Yeah.
It's like, because again, it's like he says in Far From Home, hey, I just want to be your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Of course, I love the fact that too that they give the whole bitch please, you've been to space,
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
But it's like that, you can have that.
With you on Far From Home, going Far From Home for a second. Aside from Tony Stark, who's dead and is only mentioned in the movie, okay? Aside from the Skrulls and Nick Fury, okay, every character outside of those three characters are all Sony owned.
Yeah.
You could have negated Tony Stark being in the movie by not mentioning anything.
Yeah.
If Nick and the Skrulls were in there, that was a Sony made movie at that point. Yeah. So honestly, and what's going to happen is you are going to get a third Spider-Man movie. It's just going to be Sony.
Yeah.
It's just
and hopefully they don't drop the ball.
And hopefully
that's what we got to worry about.
Right.
Hopefully, it's like now they've worked in that framework long enough that they've got a good solid base for it and say, okay, now we've got we can take this in the right direction and we can handle it now.
And the storyline that they're in, Sony can pick it up 100% because it's not MCU dependent.
Exactly.
At all. Okay.
Exactly.
So
yeah, it's not like you set up an MCU owned character to be in that third movie.
Right.
You've totally removed it. You've already set up that, hey, Tony Stark is now dead, and everybody's looking for him to be the new Iron Man. But again, like you said, no more mention needs to be made of Iron Man.
Right.
Because now it's called, how does Peter Parker handle this situation of shit?
Because
this guy has
too.
edited the footage from this attack, and somehow and his all his minions, as it were, have been there to edit all that stuff to make him look like the bad guy, and reveals his identity.
And here's the other thing too. Aside from the new Avengers that'll be there, the Avengers are broken up.
Yeah,
in a sense, that whole 5-year blip, there were no Avengers.
Yeah,
Steve Rogers is gone now. Tony Stark is gone now.
Black Widow is gone.
Black Widow is gone. There's 3 main ones right there. The Hulk is out of commission for time being. So, boom. You don't need... Spider-Man is not an Avenger anymore. Yeah. You know what I mean? So he can do whatever he wants. And I think we're going to find that you're going to get a third Spider-Man movie, and it's going to be hopefully really good. Hopefully they won't drop the ball with it. And they'll just pick up where that story went from, in that sense. It's a shame not to see him in the future movies, but the Marvel movies, as far as being these collaborative like team up movies, you're gonna find that you're gonna have the Doctor Strange movie come out, which I think is supposed to have Scarlet Witch in it. That's about the only 2 they're gonna see in there. You're gonna see Black Panther come out, which whatever, that's going to be just Black Panther. So you got a number of movies that are not Avenger movies. You have a number of movies that won't have Spider-Man in it at all anyway. Okay.
Exactly.
But my whole point of this was that shifty move, Sony. You let somebody else do the legwork, and then you're going to reap the benefits from it afterwards. So that's the way I look at it. That's the way I see it. And, you could say, no, legally you're wrong, Dan, but whatever. I know that's the motive, that if I was in business and I owned Spider-Man, that's what I would do.
Yeah.
If I physically couldn't get it done and somebody else could, let them get it done, and I'm taking it back. It's a classic heel move, and Sony, you're the villain. It's simple. Yeah.
But the thing is, they're going to put it out there, and because we love Spider-Man, we're going to go see it.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to go see it.
Now, if they bomb,
it's not like Sony's going. It's not like. Let's put it this way: the only thing that can really hurt Sony, is if they drop the ball with it. It is their cash cow to slaughter.
It is, and
if they choose
to for them to slaughter it, absolutely. Because for some reason, Sony like that. Let's talk about the Spider-Man. I know we mentioned it before. I'm going to mention it now. We talked about Sam Raimi. We talked about Amazing Spider-Man. Let's talk about these Peter Parkers for a second, because there's reasons why the whole series failed on the Sony side. There are reasons why people adore this one versus that one, that type of thing. Peter Parker, as far as Tobey Maguire was concerned, he played it off really well, this nerdy kid, but he was so head in the clouds romantic. That kind of annoyed me a little bit.
Yeah.
He was like, gee, golly willikers. I mean, you're like, where the fuck did this kid come from in real life? I mean, like he was being a nerd, or whatever, but he was so like, like, why are you crying, you Mary? Stop it,
Yeah.
And then, but he made 2 good movies. I was about to say 3, but he made 2 good movies. Okay. But then like, let me see. Okay. People are like hitting me up big time because of the show today. But then you get Spider-Man 2, which was, like you said, a blockbuster, and it was just great. And you can attribute Alfred Molina to the success of that movie.
Yeah. Just face it, Alfred Molina is a fantastic actor. I think he's severely underrated as an actor. He comes in, he can play that lead role and he can play that support character, and everything you see him in, you believe it.
Yeah.
You believe it.
In all honesty, it's the truth. And
he's a character actor, but you believe every single character he does because none of the characters he's ever really done are ever exactly the same.
Right.
He's not like he's doing these typecast roles where he's always the villain, he's always the whatever. He bounces around and you believe it every single time.
Now, once you get into Spider-Man 3, Sam Raimi, not very knowledgeable of the Venom character, but Venom was the hot ticket back then. So Sony was like, put it in.
Put it in.
And he's like, I can't do it justice. I don't know this character like that. Put it in. Because that would have been just Sandman.
Yeah.
And, you know, and
I think the movie got cluttered.
It did.
The movie was cluttered. It felt cluttered. It was just too much.
Sam Raimi will tell you that himself. That it was just a fucking big pile of shit, that movie. And, you know, his fourth installment, when you hear, I cringe every time I hear about stuff like that, because they take a character like Felicia Harding, who in the comic books becomes the Black Cat. So that's like Marvel's Catwoman to Batman.
Mm-hmm.
Black Cat is to Spider-Man. Like they're like got this romantic thing going. It's more so their alter egos that are in love than their secret identities, which is the same with Batman and Catwoman. That type of thing. But no, he was going to have her be the Vulture S, which was going to be a sidekick of the Vulture, who was rumored to be what was his name? Not Malcolm McDowell, but I can't think. He played Android, Matt. It's going back to having seen lately. He was in Red. He's bald. He's always playing a bad guy. And I can't think of his name. And he's like an Oscar award-winning actor.
You thinking Roddy McDowell?
No, it wasn't McDowell at all. It wasn't McDowell at all. And when look up Spider-Man 4 cast proposal or something like that.
Okay, we can do that.
Yeah, do that real quick. But while you're doing that, the synopsis of this Spider-Man 4 movie that we did not get was, in my eyes, atrocious. So thank God it didn't happen. And Sam Raimi said that since I'm not going to be able to make a Spider-Man movie of my own making, then how about Sony, I pull out and you just do whatever you want. Because he's like, I don't want to put my name to something I'm not involved in. And I don't want to put my name on something that I didn't have my heart behind, you know. And kudos to him for doing that and not just taking the money and running. You know what I mean? He just said, do your reboot and be done with it. Because it's not for me.
I've taken it as far as I can. John
Malkovich, thank you very much.
John Malkovich.
And he would have been great as the Vulture. He would have been great as a Vulture. He's great as anything.
Yeah.
He's awesome.
Yeah, again, another one of those characters. He can play anything, and you believe
anything
it.
He wants. Yes. So now you get this reboot, which is now Amazing Spider-Man, and you get Andrew Garfield, nice looking kid, you know, a little tall for Spider-Man, but okay.
Yeah, I'll agree with you on that one.
It was a little tall. Like I didn't say that. It was a little tall for Spider-Man, but okay.
Yeah.
But people are like, oh well. This isn't Spider-Man because he's like so cool and he's so like,
yeah.
But you have to understand though what a nerd is, or well, a nerd's terminology has changed and it's become a positive innuendo above anything else. But the theory behind Spider-Man being a nerd, so therefore he was an outsider, was he's an outsider. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So they're like, well, nerds are no longer outsiders, but who else are? Well, skateboard kids can be outsiders. You know, these types of kids can be outsiders. So they went that route of saying, we're not calling him a nerd, but we're conveying that he is an outsider. He's someone that's not super popular.
Yeah.
He's someone that can get lost in the shuffle, you know, that type of thing.
Yeah. He's not with the in crowd.
He's not with the in crowd. Now, because I think kids don't care anymore. Whether you're in the in crowd or not in the in crowd, I'm not going to spend the time to bully you. You know what I mean? Like I know there's bullying around, and I'm very anti-bullying, but I don't think the kids have very straightforward things to bully other kids about anymore. I think they have to make shit up now. You know what I mean?
Like pretty much.
They always have to search for something to bully you about. I always go back to the one,
and it's usually something you can't help. You know,
right? And I always go back.
Usually their physical appearance, your name, that kind of stuff.
I always go back to one of my favorite movies, which is Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, where they do a flashback and you're like, nah, 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 you wear glasses to see. It's like, what is this? Who wrote this? But that's what it's like. You got to make up something to bully this kid about, because you know what? I don't care enough that you skateboard. I don't care enough that you're just like, because he was kind of cool to some people. He was relatable. I mean, that was people problem with it. And but I was like, and I think the mannerisms of Spider-Man were really, really nailed in Amazing Spider-Man. Like his positions when he's swinging and when he's leaping into battle were so comic book-esque. You know what I mean? And Tom Holland,
it felt like a live action comic book.
It really did. It really did. I liked his quips. I thought he was like, I almost wanted to beat up Tobey Maguire, because I'm like, shut up, nerd. Like, even as Spider-Man, I'm like, shut up. Don't play anything at all, Yeah,
you better use your spider powers, otherwise I'm going to mop the floor with you.
But then I go back to the scene in Amazing Spider-Man when he has the guy, and he's webbing him against the wall, and he's like shooting the web, making like he sees and stuff like that. That was some funny shit. I mean, I was like, that's a jerk off Spider-Man, because that's the thing about Spider-Man. He's a jerk off. So you're like, dude, like that's what makes him funny, is that he's a jerk off. You know what I mean? And
because he is truly with a lot of his, when he's fighting somebody, whether it be a supervillain or just your local villain, this your purse snatcher kind of thing. It's kind of like he's having fun, because he's like, you know what, people have beat me up for years. Here's my vengeance.
Yeah. And he's
I'm
getting
doing it for the
enjoyment out
greater
of it.
good, but you know what? This is fun.
And you know what? I didn't get that Tobey Maguire was from New York. Did you get that? I didn't get it.
No, that is one thing. Yeah, he did not feel like a New Yorker.
Didn't feel like a New Yorker at all. I think,
and it's amazing that the English guy made you believe that he was a New Yorker.
The British guy was a better New Yorker than some New Yorkers. It was crazy,
So kudos to Andrew Garfield for
seriously.
That.
And Tom Holland, the other British guy, sounds just like he's from Queens. You know what I mean? So I'm like, yeah.
Again, I think, truly, Tom Holland, as long as I could be wrong. I could be wrong about this, but I think once he's done playing Spider-Man, he could be one of those actors that really truly goes on to, play some other great other roles.
He has other movies that are coming out. He's voicing something, I think.
He strikes me as just a good, solid actor. He's young still, but he is a solid actor.
We're seeing what was a young Tom Cruise in Risky Business.
Yeah.
That's what we're seeing with Tom Holland. And I'll say that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because Tom Cruise is one of the people that I did not like, but I love every movie that he's in.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Like Tom Cruise. It's like, screw Tom Cruise. But his characters are awesome.
Right? And like, I'm not going to give you credit, Tom, for anything you do, but you're fucking great. You're great. I'll watch everything you do. Tom Cruise.
You suck. I hate you. Your movie was great. Can I have your autograph?
Call me later. Hold on a second. Wait. I got somebody coming in here. Hold on. Bobby T, who's on, hold on a second. Bobby T's calling me. Click the link.
Bobby T, stop, put the phone down and log in.
The link.
Come on.
It's amazing.
Bobby T, you're only like an hour and a half late.
In the show.
45 minutes into the show. They started 45 minutes late.
Bob, come on so we can say goodbye. you know. But yeah, I mean, I think the two British guys did a phenomenal job being New Yorkers.
Yeah.
And I personally liked Amazing Spider-Man. I liked the death of Gwen Stacy that they did in Amazing Spider-Man 2. I think people did not like Jamie Foxx's portrayal of Electro. I was okay with it. It
wasn't terrible. It wasn't terrible.
When you read comic books, if you're that much of a nerd, you have to understand. And I've taken production in college. Okay, so that's my forte, screenwriting and stuff like that. You're not going to adapt a comic book to a movie and make it exact. You physically can't because and it's hard to explain, but your longevity of a story is longer in a comic than it is in a movie. Okay. In the movie, it's something where what's Bobby saying here? Says I need a laptop. Copy and paste in your
browser.
There we go.
That was one thing I have to say, and let me. I just want to say just a quick little shout out. As you can see from our little thing in the corner, we're using StreamYard now, and that's one of the things we used to have problems with. You know, thankfully, unfortunately, we cannot generate our stuff from a cell phone, but at least it seems that any cell phone can just jump right in. So that's why we're using it now.
And Bobby says okay, and we might have Bobby T on the show.
That would be awesome.
To say goodbye.
Yeah.
Bobby Cliff Notes, Spider-Man great, Sony bad. But
what was it? Those Camp Chaos cartoons back in the Napster days with Metallica.
Fire bad. He's going around.
Lars climbing over. Anyway, hey, if you have no idea what we're talking about, look up Metallica Camp Chaos.
Yeah.
Napster bad. You'll love it.
Oh, you'll love it. We had so much fun for hours just watching that same video over and over again.
Yeah. Watching an animated Lars crawl up an animated James Hetfield like he's King Kong.
Now into
back on
Spider-Verse, back on track. Into the Spider-Verse, which was now the Miles Morales movie. Now, Miles Morales being the new Spider-Man, okay? I wonder if they decide to make the character a white guy, would it be a different scenario where they would have made a movie for it versus what is he saying here? Do not match any. Let me send you. Okay. Give me a second. I'm multitasking while on the show here. I wonder if Miles Morales, had he not been a minority, would they have given him the full film treatment versus just an animated feature? You know what I mean? That's what I'm wondering, because the thing I'm thinking is that he did phenomenally in the show. I mean, we saw that. You know what I mean? And where's that thing? There we go. Right here. Forward to Bob Taylor. Here we go.
Yeah, I think that was one of those things where I know you had told me it was, you saw it in the theater, told me it was great. I didn't get a chance to see it in the theater, but I did see it once it came to cable or Netflix, whichever one I saw it on. I can't remember which now. And it happened to be one of those things where it's like we just put it on because Brian was here. We had some other kids in the house, whatever, and it was like, hey, something that's appropriate for him, and I'm watching.
And it was.
This is great.